The forbidden gaze, the grand symposium of galactic harmony, was anything but harmonious. Selene Thorian observed the proceedings with practiced diplomatic calm, though her inner thoughts were far less composed. As the youngest emissary of the Aurelian High Council, she represented the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, a responsibility that weighed on her slender shoulders like neutron star matter. The symposium chamber on Nexus Prime glittered with representatives from 100 worlds, their bodies ranging from vaguely humanoid to utterly alien. Floating orbs of light illuminated skin in shades of azure, emerald, and gold. Selene's own skin, with its subtle luminescence and delicate silver markings, marked her as Aurelian nobility, those born with the gift of stellar manipulation, the ability to harness and redirect the energy of stars themselves. Emissary Thorian, your thoughts on the Terran request? The moderator's voice broke through her contemplation. Selene straightened, her silvery robes catching the light. The Council's position remains unchanged. Terra's limited technological advancement and biological simplicity make them unsuitable for full membership. The words felt hollow as they left her lips. She'd studied the briefings. Terra, or Earth as its inhabitants called it, had recovered remarkably from the resource wars. Their resilience was impressive, if primitive by Aurelian standards. A movement at the far end of the chamber caught her attention. A delegation she didn't recognize had entered, mostly bipedal, with varied skin tones in browns and pinks. Humans. Their formal admission to the proceedings was unprecedented. Their leader stepped forward, and Selene felt an inexplicable shift in the energy around her. He was tall for his species, with deep brown skin and penetrating eyes that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the chamber's light. Darius Reed, representative of the United Terran Republics, he announced, his voice carrying unexpected authority. We appreciate the Council's assessment of our capabilities, though we disagree with its conclusions. The room tensed. No one challenged the Aurelian Council's judgments, not openly. Terra requests not charity but fairness, Darius continued. Your embargo on quantum communication technology has isolated our 17 colonies for decades. We seek equal access to the galactic exchange, nothing more. Selene found herself studying his features, the determined set of his jaw, the intelligence behind his eyes. Humans were considered emotionally volatile, their lifespans a mere century, compared to the millennia of an Aurelian. Yet this man spoke with the measured confidence of someone far beyond his years. The technology restrictions are for your own protection, she replied automatically. Your species has a documented history of weaponizing technological advances. As does yours, emissary, Darius countered, his gaze locking with hers. The difference is that yours are classified as peacekeeping measures while ours are labeled aggression. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Such directness bordered on diplomatic suicide. Perhaps, Selene said, surprising herself, we should discuss specific instances rather than generalities. The Council is not without reason. The subtle shift in her response didn't go unnoticed. The Centaurian ambassador's eye stalk swiveled toward her in surprise. She had deviated from the prepared position. The session adjourned hours later with little progress, but Selene found herself lingering in the chamber. Against all protocol, Darius approached her directly. Your suggestion was unexpected, he said quietly. As was your presence here, she replied. The Council rarely reverses a decision. Yet you implied they might. Selene studied him more closely. I implied they should listen. There's a difference. A significant one, from an Aurelian emissary. His eyes crinkled slightly. I've researched your species extensively. Your kind doesn't misspeak or suggest without purpose. Perhaps you've researched Aurelians, she said, feeling a strange lightness in her chest. But you haven't researched me. The conversation was dangerous, inappropriate even, but Selene couldn't bring herself to end it. Something about this human's directness cut through centuries of diplomatic posturing she'd been trained to navigate. I'd like to, he said simply. 3 cycles later, they met secretly in the gardens of Nexus Prime, away from the watchful eyes of both their delegations. It was the first of many clandestine meetings that would change the course of galactic history and the beginning of a love that would eventually bring an empire to its knees. Whispers among stars. The orbital gardens of Helios Station hung suspended in the void, a shimmering oasis where exotic flora from a dozen worlds thrived in carefully calibrated atmospheric bubbles. Selene moved through a grove of luminescent Jovian trees, their branches swaying despite the absence of wind. This far from the main diplomatic quarter, surveillance was minimal, one of the few places she could breathe without calculating every gesture. "The magistrate is growing suspicious," she said as Darius emerged from behind a curtain of glowing vines. "My request to review Terra's case file was flagged. 6 months had passed since their first meeting on Nexus Prime. 6 months of encrypted messages, fabricated diplomatic errands, and moments stolen between official functions. With each encounter, the risk grew exponentially." Darius took her hand, his touch sending a familiar warmth through her fingers. Unlike Aurelians, humans radiated heat, a biological inefficiency according to her people's scientific texts. Yet she found herself drawn to his warmth like a celestial body caught in gravitational pull. "We've made progress," he said, his voice low. 3 council members have privately expressed support for Terra's petition. Your information about the trade restriction loopholes was invaluable." Selene nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. "The Quorum of Elders has scheduled my lineage review. It's decades early." Darius tensed. The lineage review was how Aurelians determined genetic compatibility for procreation, a process usually initiated only when a formal union was being considered. "They're matching you with someone," he said, the realization darkening his features. "High Commander Orion Vex," she confirmed. "His bloodline is considered exemplary. The union would elevate my house significantly." The politics were clear. Vex commanded the Aurelian Defense Fleet, the same fleet enforcing the blockade around Terra's solar system. The arrangement would bind Selene to the military faction most opposed to human advancement. "And if you refuse?" Darius asked. "Refusal without cause is unprecedented." She turned away, watching the distant stars through the garden's transparent dome. "My family would lose standing. Centuries of political capital gone." What she didn't say was worse. The suspicion that would fall upon her, the investigations that would follow. Darius pulled her close, his heartbeat a rapid tattoo against her chest. "We always knew this would be difficult," he said. "Difficult?" Selene gave a hollow laugh. "The penalty for genetic intermixing with non-approved species is exile. For someone of my position, it would be considered treason." Yet even as she spoke the words, Selene knew her decision had been made long ago. Every encrypted message, every secret meeting had been a step away from the path laid out for her since birth. "There's something I haven't told you," Darius said, his expression shifting. "I'm not just a diplomatic representative. The Terran republics are fracturing under the blockade. Resources are dwindling. I'm part of a resistance movement, one that's preparing to challenge Aurelian dominance directly." Selene stepped back, her bioluminescent markings flaring with surprise. "A military challenge? That's suicide, Darius. You've seen our fleet." "Not conventional warfare," he clarified. "Targeted strikes against communication nodes, liberation of impounded ships, alliance building with other suppressed worlds. The Aurelian Empire isn't beloved among the outer systems." The revelation shouldn't have shocked her. Humans were known for their resistance to authority, their stubborn refusal to accept domination. It was one of the traits the Council cited as reason for their continued quarantine. "Why tell me this now?" she asked, though she already knew. "Because I'm asking you to choose," he said simply. "Not just between me and Orion Vex, but between the world you were born to and the one you might help create." The moment crystallized between them, fragile and infinite. Before she could respond, her communication implant pulsed, a priority summons from the Council. "I have to go," she said, her mind racing. Darius caught her arm. "Whatever happens, remember, there are people beyond your world who see its flaws. You're not alone in questioning the order of things." The council chamber was eerily silent when Selene arrived. 12 elders seated in a perfect circle, their ancient faces illuminated from below. At the center stood High Commander Vex, his military posture rigid. "Emissary Thorian," began Elder Zara, her voice like dry leaves. Explain your unsanctioned communications with the Terran representative. Ice flooded Celine's veins. I've had diplomatic exchanges as authorized. Your falsehood compounds your disgrace, interrupted Vex. We have records of 27 unauthorized meetings, surveillance from 7 different systems. The evidence materialized in the air. Before her, holographic images of her and Darius in various locations, some intimate enough to leave no doubt about the nature of their relationship. The human has been manipulating you, said Elder Zara, using primitive emotional tactics to extract information. Your weakness has compromised galactic security. That's not true, Celine said, her voice surprisingly steady. I've shared nothing classified yet, said Vex, his lip curling. The Council has authorized immediate memory extraction to determine the extent of the breach. Memory extraction, a psychic invasion that would leave her mind in tatters. Celine's diplomatic training evaporated as primal fear took hold. This proceeding is illegal, she managed. I invoke the right of ancestral defense. The ancient provision would delay the extraction, giving her precious hours. Elder Zara's eyes narrowed. Granted, as is tradition, you have until next orbital alignment to prepare, but know this, your disgrace is already public, your house is tainted. Indeed, as Celine left the chamber, she found the diplomatic corps watching her with a mixture of disgust and fascination. News traveled instantaneously through the Aurelian psychic network. By nightfall, she was a pariah, the noble who debased herself with a human. In her quarters, a single message awaited: the SpaceOpera freighter Bay 12 midnight. Decision time. Beyond her window, the first ships of the Aurelian defense fleet were moving into position. Not standard patrol formations, but attack configurations. Whatever Darius had planned, the Aurelians were already responding, and somewhere in those preparations, she knew, was a plan for his elimination. Fractured skies. The SpaceOpera freighter was ancient by galactic standards. A hulking mass of patched metal and repurposed components that somehow maintained atmospheric integrity. As Celine slipped through its maintenance ducts, she reflected on the absurdity of her situation. 6 days ago, she had been addressed as Your Eminence in the grand halls of the Aurelian High Council. Now she crawled through grimy service tunnels, her once pristine ceremonial robes exchanged for nondescript utility garments. The ship trembled as it broke from Helios Station's docking clamps. She was committed now. There would be no returning to her former life. You cut it close, said a voice as she emerged into a dimly lit cargo bay. Darius stood with 3 other humans, all wearing the practical, multi-pocketed attire favored by frontier colonists. We're jumping to hyperspace in 3 minutes. The Council moved faster than expected, she replied, trying to ignore the suspicious glares from his companions. They've deployed the 7th Fleet to the Terra Proxima wormhole. Whatever you're planning, they're anticipating it. A short, muscular woman with intricate facial tattoos stepped forward. You brought an Aurelian onto my ship? Have you lost your mind, Reed? This is Captain Jimenez, Darius said to Selene, ignoring the outburst. And this is her ship, technically speaking. Technically speaking, it's stolen Aurelian property, Jimenez corrected. Just like the hyperspace modulator we're using to bypass the blockade. Just like the weapons we're carrying. And just like the secrets in your girlfriend's head that are going to get us all vaporized. Celine met the captain's hostile gaze directly. The SpaceOpera was decommissioned and sold to Centaurian merchants legally. The modulator was developed independently by Terran scientists, though the Council suppressed that fact. And as for the secrets in my head, she tapped her temple. They're now your greatest asset. The ship lurched as it entered hyperspace, the familiar twisting sensation momentarily disorienting Celine. When reality stabilized, Darius led her to a makeshift command center where dozens of screens displayed various star systems. The rebellion isn't just Terrans, he explained as figures of various species moved about the room. We have Proxians, Centaurians, even some Vega colonists. Anyone who suffered under Aurelian protection and resource extraction. Protection? Scoffed a tall, blue-skinned Proxian. Is that what they call it when they harvested our moon for crystalline matrix? causing tidal disruptions that killed millions. Similar stories echoed around the room, centuries of grievances against Aurelian supremacy. Celine had heard sanitized versions of these incidents during her diplomatic training, always framed as necessary interventions or regrettable misunderstandings. Now, hearing the raw anguish in the survivors' voices, those justifications rang hollow. "What exactly is your plan?" she asked Darius when they had a moment alone. "Phase 1 begins in approximately 20 minutes, he replied, checking a holographic chronometer. "Simultaneous strikes against communication relays in 6 systems, using the access codes you provided." "I gave you those for diplomatic channels only," Celine said, alarmed, "and we're using them to send a diplomatic message." Darius's expression hardened. "Just one the Council can't ignore or suppress." Throughout the ship, teams mobilized with practiced efficiency. Celine observed with growing unease as weapon systems were activated and strike teams prepared for deployment. This was no ragtag group of malcontents. This was a military operation years in the planning. "The Council will respond with overwhelming force," she warned. "The Defense Fleet has contingencies for every scenario." "Not every scenario," said Jimenez, approaching with a data tablet. "Your access codes allowed us to identify a critical vulnerability. The fleet's neural command network has a 3-second synchronization delay when recalibrating for hyperspace jumps." Celine's eyes widened. "You can't possibly exploit that. The window is too narrow." "For conventional tactics, yes," agreed Darius. "But we've developed something new." On the main view screen, a formation of small angular ships appeared, each barely large enough for a single pilot. Their design was unlike anything in the galactic registry. "Quantum entanglement drives," Darius explained. "Based on technology the Council has suppressed for centuries. They allow for coordinated micro-jumps with precision timing." The implications were staggering. Such technology would render the Aurelian defensive grid obsolete. "How did you—" Celine began, but alarms cut her off. "Aurelian cruiser detected," shouted a sensor operator, "bearing directly for our position." "They tracked us through hyperspace?" Jimenez demanded, rushing to the controls. "That's impossible." Celine felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. "Not tracking. Prediction. High Commander Vex would have analyzed my psychological profile and calculated the most likely extraction point." The view screen showed the approaching cruiser, a sleek predator compared to their patchwork vessel. Its weapon systems were already powering up. "Launch the strike teams," Darius ordered. "Begin the operation now." "We're not in position," protested Jimenez. "We won't get another chance." Darius turned to Celine. "Can you communicate with them? Buy us time?" She accessed the ship's communication array, her fingers moving with muscle memory across the unfamiliar controls. "This is Emissary Celine Thorian requesting direct communication with the Aurelian vessel." The response was immediate. Commander Vex's face appearing on screen, his expression a careful mask of professional concern. "Emissary Thorian, you've been designated a victim of Terran coercion and abduction," he said smoothly. "Stand by for extraction." "I haven't been abducted, Commander," she replied. "I've chosen my path." Something dangerous flashed in Vex's eyes. "Then you've chosen treason. The Council has already pronounced judgment in absentia. Your house has been stripped of status. Your name erased from the ancestral records." The word should have devastated her. Instead, Celine felt an unexpected lightness. "Then I am free to forge a new identity, one not bound by Aurelian dogma." "Prepare to be boarded," Vex responded coldly. "All individuals aboard will be subject to memory extraction and neural reconditioning." The transmission cut. Celine turned to find Darius already mobilizing the ship's defenses. "We can't outfight an Aurelian cruiser," she said. "We don't need to," he replied. "We just need to delay them for 3 minutes while our strike teams hit their targets." Around them the ship transformed. Hidden compartments opened to reveal weapon systems far more advanced than the vessel's appearance suggested. Crew members moved with practiced precision to battle stations. "You've been planning this for years," Celine realized. "Since the resource wars," Darius confirmed. since the Council decided humans were too dangerous to be treated as equals. The first impact rocked the ship, knocking several crew members off their feet. Stabilizers whined as Jimenez executed evasive maneuvers. "Shields, at 60%, called a technician. Through the chaos, Selene accessed the ship's sensor array, searching for a specific vulnerability in the Aurelian cruiser's design, something she had learned during classified Council briefings. "Target these coordinates," she said, transferring the data to the weapons station. "The shield harmonics are weakest where the communication array connects to the main power grid." Jimenez gave her a surprised look before adjusting their attack vector. "Fire everything."
"We've got."
The Cassiopeia's weapons lashed out, not at the cruiser's main hull but at the precise point Selene had identified. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a cascade of energy disruptions rippled across the Aurelian vessel. "Direct hit!" shouted the weapons officer. "Their shields are fluctuating." On the tactical display, dozens of small dots appeared, representing the launched strike teams heading toward their targets across multiple systems. "The rebellion has begun," Darius said quietly. "There's no turning back now." As if to punctuate his words, the Aurelian cruiser launched a final desperate volley before its systems failed. The impact sent Selene crashing against a bulkhead, darkness claiming her consciousness as alarms blared throughout the ship. The Nexus Alliance, 3 months into the rebellion, Selene stood before the assembled representatives of the newly formed Nexus Alliance. The command center, hidden within an asteroid field in neutral space, hummed with activity as delegates from 17 formerly subjugated worlds deliberated strategy. Her silver markings, once symbols of Aurelian nobility, now identified her as something unprecedented, a defector with intimate knowledge of the Empire's weaknesses. "The Proxima wormhole assault succeeded beyond expectations," she reported, gesturing to the tactical display. 8 Aurelian destroyers neutralized with minimal casualties on our side. Their quantum communication network for the entire sector is compromised. Murmurs of approval rippled through the gathering. Early victories had transformed skepticism into cautious optimism, bringing more allies to their cause each week. The holographic map showed territories where Aurelian control had been successfully challenged, small islands of freedom in an ocean of imperial dominance. Captain Jimenez, now fleet commander of the Alliance's growing armada, stepped forward. "The stolen prototype vessels are performing exceptionally. Combining Terran quantum drive technology with Selene's knowledge of Aurelian defense systems has given us the edge in every engagement." Not every engagement, Selene thought grimly. The battle for Centauri Prime had cost them dearly. 3 ships destroyed and hundreds of lives lost. Among them, Darius's closest friend and Lieutenant Thomas Ryder. She had watched Darius mourn him with quiet intensity, another weight added to his already burdened shoulders. "The Council has requested negotiation," Selene continued. "They're proposing sector autonomy for Alliance worlds in exchange for cessation of hostilities." "A trap," declared the Proxian delegate. "They're stalling while they reconfigure their defense grid." "Agreed," said Darius, entering the chamber. The last months had hardened him, etched new lines into his face. The idealistic diplomat had been replaced by a battle-tested revolutionary. "But we'll accept their invitation. It gives us access to the Aurelian Central Command." Selene felt a chill. "You're planning to strike at the heart of the Empire." "Their arrogance makes them vulnerable," Darius replied. "They can't conceive of defeat, so they don't adequately prepare for it." Later, alone in their quarters aboard the flagship Defiance, Selene confronted him. "This is a suicide mission. Central Command is the most heavily defended installation in the galaxy." "Which is why you won't be part of the strike team," Darius said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "That's not your decision to make," she countered. "It is when your presence would compromise the mission." His voice softened slightly. "You're too valuable, Selene, not just for your knowledge, but for what you represent. An Aurelian who chose freedom over empire. the living proof that change is possible. Before she could respond, an alarm sounded. They rushed to the bridge where tactical displays showed 3 Aurelian battlecruisers emerging from hyperspace. "How did they find us?" demanded Jimenez. Selene scanned the sensor readings, dread building as she recognized the energy signature. "It's Vex. He's leading the assault personally." "All ships, battle formation Delta," ordered Darius. "Evacuation protocol for non-combat personnel." As the Alliance fleet moved to defensive positions, Selene realized with terrible clarity what was happening. This isn't a random attack. They knew exactly where to find us. "We have a traitor," Jimenez concluded. "Or they're tracking something," Selene said quietly, her hand moving to the base of her skull where her Aurelian communication implant had been surgically disabled, or so they thought. Understanding dawned in Darius's eyes. "They've been following you all along." The first barrage hit the Defiance's shields, the impact throwing them against the bulkheads. Through the viewscreen, Selene watched Alliance ships moving to protect the command center, positioning themselves between the Aurelian battlecruisers and the asteroid base. "I need to leave," she said. "Draw them away from the fleet." "Absolutely not," Darius responded, already coordinating the counterattack. But Selene had made her decision. As chaos engulfed the bridge, she slipped away toward the shuttle bay. Her presence had brought this destruction. Her absence might yet save what they had built. As she prepared a shuttle for launch, Darius appeared at the airlock. "Don't do this," he said simply. "It's the only way," she replied. "Vex wants me more than he wants the rebellion crushed. His pride demands it." Darius's expression hardened with resolve. "Then we give him what he wants, on our terms." Beyond the void, the Aurelian homeworld gleamed like a perfect jewel against the velvet backdrop of space, its atmosphere shimmering with protective energy fields that had never been breached in 10,000 years of recorded history. Until today. Selene stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as the combined fleet of the Nexus Alliance emerged from hyperspace at precisely calculated coordinates, a blind spot in the planetary defense grid that she had revealed to them. Beside her, Darius coordinated the assault with grim determination, his voice steady as he directed ships into formation. "Phase 1 complete," reported Jimenez over the comm. "Defense satellites neutralized, proceeding to the capital citadel." The plan was audacious to the point of madness, a direct strike at the Aurelian High Council itself. Not to destroy, but to force recognition, to demand equality at the point of a sword. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's High Commander Vex." The commander's face appeared on screen, his usual composure fractured by disbelief. "This sacrilege will not stand, traitor," he said to Selene. "Your human pets will be eradicated and you will witness it before your final judgment." "The time for judgment is over, Commander," she replied calmly. "We come with terms for a new galactic compact, one based on mutual respect rather than domination." Vex's response was cut short as the Defiance rocked under enemy fire. On the tactical display, dozens of Aurelian ships converged on their position. "We need to land now," Darius said, "while we still have the element of surprise." The descent to the surface was a blur of evasive maneuvers and precision countermeasures. Selene had never imagined returning to her homeworld as an invader, yet here she was, guiding enemy ships through the defenses she had once sworn to uphold. They landed amid the crystalline spires of the capital citadel, the seat of Aurelian power for millennia. Alliance forces secured a perimeter, as Selene and Darius led a small team toward the council chamber. "The neural disruptors won't work on the Elders," she warned as they moved through familiar corridors. "Their psychic abilities are too powerful." "They don't need to," Darius replied. "We just need them to listen." The great doors of the council chamber opened to reveal the 12 elders seated in their traditional,